Good evening to you, beautiful friends. I hope that you are all doing well. It's been a minute for me. I have been lifing. Such things include helping some friends of mine, former classmates actually, from Kentucky, work on some of their sermons. Religion, my faith is very important to me, though I will be the first to admit I am certainly not a canon Christian by any means. It was nice to kind of get to Skype with them and work on their sermons and find out that they were well received. And just advocating for some geese. It's a journey. Life is just wonderful and amazing, and all life is sacred. Not to get into like the vegan and meat eater debate, but that's a talk for another day, as I like to say. Technically speaking, again, all life is sacred. All forms of nutrition have means to communicate, they have consciousness, etc. Funnily enough, on consciousness, I'm reading this fantastic book, just speaking on the things that we love and why we love them. And that's my topic today. I already actually have a topic. It's called Bad at Love. So grab yourself a snack. We're gonna aim for about 30 minutes here. And last time I couldn't help it. I went back and watched one of my last videos, and I mentioned grab a snack I think like 3 different times, and I was like, oh my gosh, I should make a drinking game out of this. But I wrote a poem I haven't written in a minute, and I will probably share that. I don't know. I struggle because sometimes it's like, oh, am I being grandiose and like, oh, look at me. But it's, as Charles Bukowski once said, though, as everything has its own whatever, he could be perceived as being very bitter and misanthropic, etc. Same. He talked about writing and how essentially he couldn't not write, that it was just who he was and a part of who he was, and he couldn't help it. And that's kind of how I look at artists, and even what some could perceive as potentially my disdain. Human language is so interesting, or even just perceptions. Cheers, we're here. You have survived 100% of your most unsuccessful days. So, unsuccessful days. Sorry. I got a little bit excited because my throat was dry there, so I needed some juice. So, you have survived just everything, all of your challenges. This is not to like minimize or gaslight even slightly. It's just more that you're here and you have succeeded. And sometimes it doesn't always feel like that, because obviously, technically speaking, couldn't we all do better? Yes. Maya Angelou said it beautifully, do the best you can until you know better. And once you know better, do better. And that's really all we can do. And so much of that is in even just being able to receive feedback with grace. That's something that I know I can be challenged with, especially if, for example, the person who is trying to maybe critique me isn't demonstrating the best capabilities or competencies, i.e., if I am demonstrating a lot of compassion, understanding, you don't understand, and maybe aren't receiving how I'm being incredibly patient, understanding, I might get irritated and very frustrated if you're just like, you're not as kind or nice as you think you are. I just want to be like, man, screw you. But it's a matter of always just trying to be loving. And as I see it, obviously, like everyone's path is their own to walk. I can't help but be like, wow. There's a lot going on. People seem to want to get mad. People seem to get angry. And I don't know, it might be oppositional defiant disorder, might be radically punk, I don't know. But I'm going to love you. I'm going to love you if I don't agree with you. I'm going to love you if I don't like you. I'm going to love you if I absolutely, as on a personal level, I'm like, I could never do what you would do, and have to struggle to not judge or observe you as a POS, etc. Because it's my choice and it's my right, and it's the one thing I can do. And you know what? We all bleed red at the end of the day. Now, that being said, I might have to love you from afar. It might have to be an incredibly far connection because of perhaps the ways you choose to align with me, respect my boundaries, choose to understand and incorporate my perceptions, my intentions, etc. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to be all love. And again, people are allowed to perceive it as they want to, i.e., critical thinking. If I'm challenging a narrative, if I'm like, I don't agree with you, it doesn't mean I don't love you. It doesn't mean I don't care about you. In fact, funnily enough, that's always been something for me that's been very hard because, again, right, the truth. Treat everyone as you want to be treated. I want you to tell me your truth. As in, if you think I'm too much, whatever, just to find your respectful way. As I've mentioned before, often for me, unfortunately, it's typically in how one will say it. And I absolutely am an advocate of trying to be more mindful of how I do, what I do, and adapting accordingly. I think sometimes it can be frustrating for another person dealing with me, to be honest with you, if they're not maybe able to reciprocate. And that's understandable too, but own that. So this book that I'm reading, and I don't have it in front of me, funnily enough, I have 2 other books. I actually have 4 books in front of me because I'm a gigantic dork. And I love learning. There is just so much, and it's incredibly problematic, to be honest with you, because on the one hand, I absolutely, there's no such thing as stupid. Okay. One can be stupid if they're stubborn and they want to strictly adhere to their views, and this is the only one way they can do it. And that's not, unfortunately, a problem of mine because I'm so passionate of where or how I view things and just how assured I am of my particular stances and whatnot. Unfortunately, because I sometimes don't take the time to say about this particular instance, in this particular circumstance, because of these particular variables. And it's unfortunate because it's one of those where I am giving my co-creator or creators the benefit of the doubt to not specify and assuming they're intelligent enough. And it's not to say they're not intelligent if they're not mindful to keep that perspective because, life, it happens to all of us. But it can get frustrating, especially because I don't believe there's any such thing as stupid or again, the stupid thing, we can be stubborn and stupid. But just ignorant. We're all ignorant, for lack of a better way to put it. We're all ignorant of so many things, and there's always so much more that we can learn. I even have issues with IQ tests, etc. Just because of even comprehension, practical application, talks for other days. I tell you, I could just go on and on and on, and who has time? But back to the psychology book that I'm reading. It's just talking about identity and love, and just how we will comprise our identity by so much of what we love, i.e., I love this show, this is who I am because of how I resonate with such and such. And it goes so deep on so many levels, just how we use it to seek connection with other people because we like that whole fandom, how we associate certain aspects with our identity, etc. And it's just wild. And I haven't gotten into the book enough yet. And it's neat because it's one of those to where I can't necessarily tell if the psychologist who is writing it is necessarily good or bad. It's a dialectic thinking, if you will. It holds space for both different types of perspectives. And those are my favorite types of engagements. Because truly, when is anything ever one thing? And when is it the same thing every single time? Spoiler, in my mind, it's not. And I don't want to be oppositional to fight someone to be I don't want to be I will fight you. But I can't see it that way. And beg your pardon, I'm going to apply some lip balm for a second because my lips. And I'm going to take a sip. Cheers if you have that snack and has a good lunchtime. I've talked about it. And it's interesting. I would love to hold space, for an hour, etc. But sometimes I feel like it gets so magnanimous, just going on and on and on. I mentioned previously about wanting to be an educator. And I've realized, dork that I am, I take every opportunity because Bruce Lee was fabulous about this, just self-actualization. There are no ends. We are means to the ends, as in we are a continuation. How we do what we do matters, and just showing up authentically. Eventually, at certain points, I want to unpack themes like misogyny and the male loneliness epidemic, and how women are lonely too, emotional regulation, how sometimes men might possibly be giving women the burden of potentially being the emotional caregivers. Gosh, there's just so much. Everything all at once. And it's beautiful and painful and all of it. And personally, for me, True Hollywood Confession time, it's a struggle because, and I will try to make sure I get to my poem just because again, nothing more than just empowering all of us. I was just talking about this with some friends at dinner, that we all are artists, truly. We all have these capacities. We can all sing, we can all play instruments, we can all write. It's just a matter of making that connection and then having the space and the time, and then just the competition of resources, etc. And some people would tell you that I'm just this weird dreamer, hippie, whatever. And it's very interesting because I've had trauma in my background, not to trauma dump, so I can wake up and literally just be mad. At one point a few years back, I quite literally was, okay, I say a few, it's been almost a decade now. Testify. Don't ever let people tell you that you can't change. Sometimes the change is quick, sometimes it's not. Think of, if you witness, or if you survive a near-death experience, or if you witness, unfortunately, something transpiring. We have these, come to Jesus moments, so to speak, or just these life-altering moments. So again, it's a matter of choice. And if we choose to want to be disciplined and continue to focus our energies, if we want to fail and fail better, etc., and that's okay if we choose and decide not to do other things. But identity, love, it's really neat. Just even the psychology behind like romantic love and the problem with romantic love, as some people would say, or the two separates becoming one. And it just got me thinking that it stinks, so to speak, and it's a struggle because I'm working on loving myself completely, exactly as who I am, and it's a lot. So I'm trying to not get emotional. It's a lot easier said than done, because when you choose to engage with other people, sometimes you run that risk of how they can end up perceiving you because of disagreements in the places they're at and how you show up. And it's so complicated, right? All of the things. And some people think about these things and some people don't. And it's just, it's heartbreaking. Like, I have such love. And it's so unfortunate because it doesn't always get perceived as loving, because maybe it's not the type of love that the person wants. And it can be very unfortunate because, again, who gets to decide that? Like, what is love? Is it love? Is it loving to not necessarily perform and step forward and give them what they want, etc.? Gosh, sorry, I'm trying to. Emotional regulation. This is good. Therapy. Yay. Hashtag therapy. Because there's nothing shameful about feeling your feelings. In fact, you feel things like, oh, it's so wussy, toughen up, don't cry, act like a girl. Like, it's weird how, again, so much of the patriarchy is about not being weird and feeling your feelings. Women are the emotional ones. And sure, I'm feeling my feelings. Pardon me for using my scarf. My fingers aren't doing well. Yes, I'm feeling my feelings. But if it's not apparent, I'm also breathing through that and working through that. Because what's wrong with experiencing your feelings and thinking about it and trying to understand and hold multiple perspectives? And I'm getting really sideways. So, love. Just, it can be painful for me. I was going to say just, something I don't like about myself, or something I'd change. But that's not even the right language. Like, we shouldn't ever necessarily not be okay with who we are. But we should understand that, like, our actions cause harm, and if we really care, then the best thing we can do is try to understand and hold that negative mirror. Ask ourselves how we suck and how we can better be of service to everybody. And again, who am I? Litmus test goodness. Are you not a good person if you don't do this? Not necessarily, because they're reserves trying to get by. Again, Maya Angelou. Do the best you can, and until you know better. And once you know better, do better. But one thing is true, I guess. We all bleed red and we all suffer stuff. I've talked about it before, but like greed, right? Like, how can you say you're okay when you legitimately need a bunch of stuff to like feel good about yourself? Like, not to sound like a complete weirdo, I often think about it. My greatest fear, I think, would be to not necessarily have a choice in something. Big fan of stoicism, like Marcus Aurelius. Not like the harder, but just the fact that we have control of our mindset. That's the one thing we have choice. We can choose. That's like the one thing, no matter what, that we get to choose how we show up. And it's so difficult though, because the world, so many, you get hit with everything. Think this, think that, this is good, this is bad. But like we have conscience. We've talked about even depression and like how sometimes we can't necessarily like sit with ourselves or like be okay with who we are. And I have to wonder if that's because we're not living authentically, etc. Again, everything all at once. I could go on and on. But just showing up and being who we are, making those good choices. And darn it, I lost my point. I'm feeling so good. Just how we have the choice. You know, the world will say, oh, match energies. If they go low, you go lower, yada, yada. And people are still going to perceive you as they perceive you. But that doesn't, like, at the end of the day, you know, that's where the depression comes in, etc. And I do feel like that's where a lot of the guilt and the shame comes in, because maybe someone says something to you and maybe something sticks a little bit and you don't know how you know, but it's on like the subconscious level. And then you can get upset at the messenger because it's just like, ugh, because nobody wants to suck, right? Like, we're all trying. And sure, we're not always trying our best and we're not trying our hardest. And like, man, who can do all of that? I don't know. It's very Catholic of me, and maybe I'm not Catholic. I joke about that. I would say I'm more of a Baha'ist or a pantheist, to be honest with you, an omnist, truth in all of it, because I do believe God is omnipotent. That's a human struggle, right? Is understanding and seeing the godliness in all of you, including atheists, agnostics, but also not to be in an assaulting way. Like, you know, God loves you, atheists and agnostics, so much that if you don't believe in God, God's still like, you know, I am here for you. If ever you want to acknowledge me, I'm going to support you anyway, but like only as much as you want, because I don't want to be violating, etc. Christianity, again, I'm a Christian. I try to follow the teachings of Christ. Talks for another day. Being Native Indigenous, that's also, amongst other things, that's interesting, because Christianity is thought to potentially not necessarily be in accordance, but again, Baha'is. To be fair, I and this isn't ancient alien stuff, but even just learning about some of the attributions of extraterrestrials, etc. This might be where I lose all 20 of you. Thank you, by the way, all 20 of you, or whomever happens to subscribe, etc. Because, again, I'm just trying to people and educate, empower. We're all comprised of stardust and magical and incredible, and we're here. And quantum entanglement. You know, you don't even have to be a person of faith. If you're a person of science, then you potentially have studied even understanding energies and how they all intertwine. And if you haven't even gone that deep into it, most people understand E equals MC squared. Light sound travels fast. Our brain kind of slows it down to perceive it. Everything is atoms vibrating at different speeds. I can't help but see the interconnectedness of it. And I'm not trying to be an oppositional defiant disorder. Again, with those things I don't like about myself and I would change. Ooh, is that it? And it's interesting because I find myself disagreeing with people a lot. And for someone who absolutely understands how everything is applicable in the right circumstances, it seems so ironic. It's something in the weird energy or the lack of open-mindedness. It's all I can say. It feels right. All right. I'm going to read my poem and then I'm going to speak some more. I'm only going to read my poem because it kind of ties into all of this, just even being the bad at love. And then just, yeah. So it's, again, just more, as Bukowski said, creating. And hopefully, you know, this is to educate and empower you. I know I shared a video playing guitar at one point. If you checked it out, awesome. If not, this is your first time, feel free. But this is how we help each other. You know, we rise and fall. And this is just, it is brand spanking new, and it's not written very well. I handwrite because I'm old as crap. When Methuselah lost his sandals. So if I mess up, because it is more flow and spoken poetry, and I hope I don't mess it up too bad. But yeah, here we go. It's called Bad at Love. And funnily enough, I don't typically title my poems, but again, it came to me. So thank all of you. I thank all of you, just even in giving the opportunity to connect and share. It is just empowering, just being of service, as silly as that sounds. Just if this reaches one person, if this reaches 1,000,001 people, it's just existing. Again, quantum entanglement, it's a science thing. But more importantly, we are all in this together, and nothing you're thinking, nothing you're feeling, it's normal, it's natural, it's not weird. Although, as much as I would say, what the heck is normal, because it can't be agreed upon, we're all in this together. It just manifests differently. All right, so bad at love. Apparently, I'm bad at love. So mean, so judgmental, such a bitch. And baddest of the bad I am, because I'm not just talking romance. Friends, colleagues, almosts, nevers, so many misconnection in betweens. Eyes locked. Do I? Don't I? Take a chance. Summoning courage, daring to unmask. Man, this weather. Did you see that new movie? For being seen as smart. Damn, I suck at society. Soliloquy. Wait, is that screaming? Projecting? Aren't we all just connecting? Or seeking connection? Engagement? To be seen? Again, with that projection. This time mine. Pardon me. So I put down my armor. Things like nice. Words deemed agreeable. And I choose what I was taught to be. Love. My truth. I share my thoughts upon experiencing you. And sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's bad. Humans and language, simply happy or sad. My language is feeling, frequency. But how does that translate in these times so rife with hate? To question means no care at all. Not supporting narratives? Why do you make me crawl? I matter too. If you can't agree with all I see, screw you. My way is right. Don't question me. Deep down, I'm probably struggling to admit I'm feeling no authority or agency. Wait, let me speak. Have I ever even thought about why I think what I think? Wait, stop, no. TikTok, Graham, these reels, these shorts, that's who I am. My music, my food, hobbies, identity, these things that I love, they're what make me me. I feel these things down in my bones. You cannot speak aloud. Fear, shame, cowardice? Perhaps I'm just too proud. You may be right. For something stings, but it's easier to deflect. I know. I sought connection once, but now I'll just reject. My friend, beloved, family, your flawed humanity, my broken object. Did I previously lament world rife with hate? To break from these bars, I won't recall my friend date, but to ebb and flow, I'll let you know. Once again, apparently, I'm bad at love. I was telling my girls I was feeling so lost, so hurt. Like, try as I might sometimes, without meaning, my words wound. I cited over our dinner date, being seen as judgmental, so mean, such a bitch, by even them too. And as they both spoke, unmasked, no denials, but aligned. You just aren't always understood. I thought, yeah, I'm bad at love. So, I do apologize because I'm still working out the flow and I think I misread a bit of a line. And yeah, not necessarily seeking applause, not seeking anything, just wanted to share because it's important to create. But, one man's trash is another man's treasure, so to speak. And perhaps nobody's bad at love. It's interesting. I know in previous videos I lamented possibly never necessarily being in romantic connection again. And I want to speak to that, not to be bitter. We're getting really close to the 30-minute mark. But I do oftentimes feel like we connect with as friends, lovers, whatnot. We show up, not necessarily meeting ourselves and healing ourselves and working on our wounds and wanting validation in the form of other people. So much of our societal construct, so much of the things we love are coping mechanisms. And it's worth sitting with, it's worth exploring, because we aren't just what we like, we aren't just what we eat, we aren't the music we listen to, we aren't the shows that we like, and we aren't just the people that agree with us. We are all growing and learning and changing and living and experiencing human beings, feeling, breathing, thinking, living, hurting, loving. And perhaps we're not necessarily bad in love. Perhaps we're just learning and growing and evolving. And we're all doing the best we can. And, once we know better, we do better. So I guess this is my call into all of you. Not to say that what you've been doing is bad or good. I'm human, I'm flawed, depending on if you run into people who know me, believe what they tell you, but ask them what they did to get that particular energy from me. And then more importantly, feel free to ask me. Because as much as it can be distorted, I do know one thing to be true. I'm always trying to figure out how much of a butthead I'm being in this situation, and always trying to kind of show up and be more loving. And not even necessarily in the ways that I would want to be loved per se, but in what I'm observing of the person. Not just even in what they're saying, but how they're acting. And it's very hit or miss, but fortunately we get the opportunity to decide who gets to have access to us based on those hit or misses and how we engage them. Again, we're all growing and learning, and we're all walking each other home. So I'm loving you this day and always, and it is such a wonderful, wonderful journey. And I will see you guys soon. Until then, how are we changing the world? Mwah!